Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Sorry about that. We're glad you're here. We appreciate you tuning in. Before we meet our guests, we are going to give our sponsors a shout out. If you're new to the podcast, these are all companies that I used them as an AD. They're great companies. You should be using them too. So I want you to take 3 minutes, listen to these shout outs, then listen to our podcast interviews, then go and visit each one of these sponsors because you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Home Campus for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Now, as an AD, you schedule, you work with rosters, you communicate, you handle facilities, you do this stuff every day. Home Campus does all of those functions, does it better, does it faster than the other platforms. Did I mention athletic eligibility and clearance? That one is a game changer. I want you to go to Home Campus, talk to their teams, find out all the great things that they can do for you. That's homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys. At my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for kids, for coaches, even parents. And the information that came back, almost always over the top positive. And I know it'll be the same for you. But having all that positive data, incredibly valuable, especially if you are visiting with a frustrated parent, or sometimes your principal, sometimes even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Find out all the things that they can do for you and your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. We'd also like to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's degree through the Ohio program, but guess what? My assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. And while they were earning their master's degree, they also completed 11 LTI leadership training courses from the NIAAA at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We want to say thank you to Hometown. Hometown continues to be a leader in education-based athletics with their solutions that include things like, well, digital ticketing, of course, but how about fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction? Their list just goes on and on. Go to hometown.com, whether you're an athletic director, a principal, or a head coach. Hometown is going to show you how to save time, how to raise more money, and how to bring your entire community together. You'll find it all and more at hometown.com. Let's also say thanks to Booster Hub, the #1 Booster Club software program. Are you struggling with things like sponsorship payments, meal fees, volunteer signups, volunteer changes? All of that goes through Booster Hub's secure system. Nothing falls through the cracks. Spiritware, sales, communication, all those functions are taken care of through Booster Hub, and that allows your boosters more time to support you as fans. Give your boosters the platform they need. Give them the platform they deserve. It's boosterhub.com. And don't forget to mention the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Huddle. You know, as a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just love the Huddle platform. Go to huddle.com, join the 100 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. We want to say thanks to Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Now, Wall of Fame has been helping schools bring their legacy to life for over a decade, but Beacon takes it to another level. Beacon Creative is a content creation service, and they're going to take your information, your student athletes, your history, your results, and come up with compelling narratives that you can then post on your social media, maybe using a Wall of Fame board. You really got to see it to believe it. I want you to email John Townsend, and you can do that at John, John, at beaconwalloffame.com. Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. It's a winning team that you need to join. We want to say thanks to Gipper. go to Gipper.com. They are the modern marketing platform that allows you to look your best, look like a Division I program without spending extra time or hiring additional staff. Go to Gipper.com. It's trusted by over 20,000 high school and college programs. Your athletic department, your kids, your coaches, they're doing great stuff. Create and share all of it on social media in one simple platform. Go to Gipper.com and don't forget to mention the podcast. And we want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see all their products in action. You've heard me say many times, probably the best equipment purchase I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. And as always, don't forget to mention the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We have not done one of these forum podcasts, I don't think, since season 1, and I'm really excited to kick it off with this tremendous group of athletic directors. Joining us today on the podcast, we have 3 outstanding leaders. We're calling it West Coast Leadership. And we have 3 athletic directors, 1 each from the states of Washington, Oregon, and California. And they're going to be talking about some issues that I think affect athletic directors across the country. And let's go ahead and meet all of them. Starting off from California, we've got a longtime friend. She was on the podcast season 1 from Los Altos High School in the Bay Area. We are welcoming Michelle Noeth. She is a certified athletic administrator, tremendous background. We connect, I think, just about every year at the national conference. Michelle, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to talking about some amazing topics with your other fellow persons that we have on the podcast today.
Okay. Moving north into my home state of Oregon, we have Shelley Moore. Shelley's also been on the podcast before. She is a certified master athletic administrator. She's the director of athletics at Newport High School. It's on the Oregon coast. And she is also serving as the president for the Oregon Athletic Directors Association. Also very active at the national level. Shelley Moore, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to learn from everybody else that's here today. So I appreciate it.
And rounding out our panel from the great state of Washington, we have Stephanie Splater. Stephanie is the executive director for athletics and after-school programs for the Spokane, Washington public school system. Also a podcast veteran and very active, very active in addition to the associations on social media. Just does a great job of promoting all things in her program. Stephanie, welcome back to the podcast.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, and glad to connect with these ladies on the episode today, and can't wait to dive into our discussion topics.
Well, time is precious for our listeners. We're recording this on March 3rd, so it's going to be very timely when you listen to it. Each of our athletic directors has brought a topic to the table today. They're going to introduce it, kind of give their points on it, and then the other members of the panel are going to have a chance to comment on it. I'm going to try to stay in the background and just maybe move us from topic to topic. Michelle, we drew straws, and you're going first. So what are you going to share on West Coast leadership?
Thanks, Jake. Today, the topic that I wanted to bring up was changing the mindset of being an athletic director. This is my, I want to say, 11th year of being an athletic director. I've gone to different conferences. I've gone to workshops. I've read some of the books that people have published, even the athletic director's toolbox during COVID. That was pretty cool that came out. And a lot of conversations that we have when we go to conferences or reconnect with other athletic directors, we're always talking about the struggles of being an athletic director, that there's so many different tasks that we have to accomplish and so little time and time management and how we can make our jobs more efficient. And sometimes we have personality challenges with our coaches. And I just thought maybe having a conversation about changing the mindset just a little bit about being an athletic director and some of the positives of being an athletic director. So when having conversations, it's, yeah, the officials were making terrible calls, but hey, we have officials, and here's some positive ways that we can change the narrative. So I was just thinking something different and unique instead of tackling problems, talking about the positives and why it's so amazing to be an athletic director.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in, and I'm going to let our guests. I think it's a topic that definitely needs to be discussed. I'm going to share this one anecdote. I would typically have parents come up to me at my school, and I was at a private school, so we had private school parents. But they were great, and they would typically say things like, I would hate to have your job. You're here at all hours. You have to deal with parents and kids, et cetera. And I would let them share, but then I'd tell them, oh, no, you got it all wrong. Okay. You have to be here to watch your kid play. I get to come here. I'm getting paid to come and hang out with coaches and kids. And, I get paid to go to games. What better job is there? So, yeah, there's challenges, of course. But, Shelley, what are your thoughts on what Michelle just shared with us?
Yeah, I love that you said that. I try to really practice switching have to with get to all the time. And I think it's a shift in your mindset. And I will joke with people and they'll say, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I get paid to go to games. Like they pay me to go to games. And I used to coach a couple years ago. I coached a little third grade volleyball team, and they were like, Mrs. Moore, what do you do? And I said, well, I get to pay to go watch games all the time. You do? Yeah. I said, don't tell my superintendent though. She thinks I do other things. I just go to games all the time, and games are fun and we play them. We just similarly, it is about mindset. I always talk in our family. We have this rule, like there's no palms upping in our family. Like you do not get to talk with your palms up. My kids are 35 and 32. So now it's my grandson who's 3, but it's about like shift your palms and flip them down and see how, like what it does to your mindset and your kind of your schema and your way of thinking. And it flips you from being like defensive and attacking and a victim to being positive and emotionally under control. And I think more in a growth mindset. So I talk about that a lot. Last week, we just published for the Oregon Athletic Director Association. We do a quarterly newsletter, and I wrote an article in it about sort of these sorts of things. And, nobody wants to go to their 75th, professional development or webinar on mental health of athletic directors. It is busy and it is full. And there are things that come at us. It's dynamic, it's unpredictable. It's what athletics are. Like we don't know what's coming at us all the time. And so you have to, excuse me. Once I kind of in my mind, I was a principal of an elementary school for a while. And I realized when people come at you and they're saying really big things and maybe not the right way, or maybe in not the right setting, it comes from 3 places of positivity, which are direct communication. They're trying to directly communicate. They're coming from a place of love, like they love this person they're communicating about from a deep level, and trust. They trust you're going to do something about it. So if I can catch myself and pause, are my palms down? Do I have a get to mindset? And do I understand that the places these people are coming from are positive? And really it's about something that's misunderstood. Like it doesn't have to be a personal thing. So Michelle, I appreciate your spin on that. Like I'm kind of done hearing, oh, it's so hard. And it's like, why would I want this job? Like I get this job. Athletics have given me every good thing in my life from a young age. And so it feels like the cream of the crop, like kind of like you're saying, Michelle. It's a get to, it's not a have to.
Mm-hmm.
I've been encouraged by our recent pools of athletic directors. So we posted a position for one of our largest high schools this last spring, and we had 60 legitimate candidates. And I was so excited for that because the word out there is this is a really, really hard job. And of course it is, because we've added all of the technology in the last 10 years. That's just a complete difference maker, both for efficiency and, in a great way, but also it's something else to manage in addition to the events and the coaches and the programming and so on. So I was really encouraged by that. And we got really top tier candidates as well. So from that 60, narrowing it down to the 5 that we interviewed was an exciting process, but also spoke to, I think we are transitioning to a new generation that has a different mindset in some ways. And then also realizing that we have our other 4 are experienced athletic directors. When they get more experience, they tend to enjoy the work more because they know how to carve out that personal time, set some boundaries, but also know that if they're at school until 11 or 12 on a game night, they get to come in the next day a little later and take their 3rd grader to school. So that flexibility, getting used to that, because this is a really dynamic job where there's a lot to do. There's not a lot to do almost every single day. We started spring sports yesterday, which is the wildest time of year, of course. Grateful that it's 57 and sunny. That's amazing here in the Northwest. But this is also different than middle of basketball season where everything is about event management. Yesterday was just making sure kids were eligible, registered, and signed up and all the facility pieces and so on. So I just really think it's interesting that we're evolving into what is the definition of a modern athletic director. And I love the viewpoint from both of you that the mindset piece is so key to doing the job and doing the job well. Otherwise, don't do it because you're going to be busy people. I know I was resenting having to go to something last fall, and I had to reset out loud to my husband and say, oh, I get to go to a youth basketball event plus something at our great new downtown stadium. There's worse things to have to do. And by the way, both of those things were 5 minutes from my house. So it wasn't even like it was a travel hassle. It was just a reset on my mindset that these are really important, cool jobs, and sure can be stressful and time bound and time heavy, but they're also really cool experiences that we're making for kids that are life-changing for sure.
And I think one of the things that's really cool, talking about the shifting the mindset, is the things that you get to do as an athletic director as far as putting your stamp on something. Maybe it's redoing the banners or redoing how awards are given out, or, how communication is handled with coaches and parents and athletes that enhances the program and transparency. So there's all these positive things that you can say, yeah, I got to be a part of, or I got to do this and make this change for the positive. I mean, one of the cool things that I had done, I went to the national conference, and in the tech session, one of the ADs made a coach's website. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool, because it's a one-stop shop for the coaches. And that gave me the opportunity to create a website for the coaches to make it easier for them. But then it was also that professional growth of, okay, now I know how to make a website. Whereas if I was just a PE teacher, that's not something I would ever think of doing. So I feel like you get to learn all these different skills that you never thought you would have the skill set to do. Like, I understand what a widget is now. Before, I had no clue. So it's kind of cool from that aspect as well.
That is cool to continue these continuous growth opportunities. Like, we say that and we think, oh no, not another thing to learn, but it does fill your bucket and it does fuel you to be able to add to the skill set. And along with that, I think certain things then drop off too. I mean, less paper. We could all use less paper, record keeping and so on. So looking for those efficiency products and pieces and learning something new is super key too.
Wow, great discussion. I'm curious, Stephanie, you talked about, you had to do your own personal reset for that, those events. Shelley, Michelle, anything that you do to, I guess, keep it in the forefront? Or, for me, I went to college so I wouldn't have to work for a living. I could keep playing sports. And then, okay, well, now I'm going to graduate. They're going to kick me out of college here. I get paid to coach. Well, you're going to have to teach. Oh, yeah, I can do that. I love doing that. So I say, I spent 41 years living the dream, getting paid to do something that I love to do. I think all of us are kind of wired that way as athletic directors and coaches, but is there anything that you do specifically to kind of keep that in the forefront, or is it you're just so wired you don't need to keep it in the forefront because it's there?
I've started some, I'm glad you asked that question. Recently, some bigger lines in the sand. So in this article that I wrote, like, we don't need to tell ADs to, oh, turn it off. And it's, like our job doesn't stop if we don't let it. There's always somebody using a gym, again, to play a game. There's always somebody who's practicing or traveling. So it keeps our brains like needing to be plugged in more, but there are ways to plug it to shut it off. So a couple things that sound really trivial but have been just like massive for me in the last month is really like the line between what I use my phone for and what I use my computer for. And so I started to think like what are the functions that my phone does that something else could do? Well, I had a case that was a wallet. And so everywhere my wallet was my phone. So I had to take it everywhere. There was no division there. So I bought this cheap little wallet at Goodwill. And because I was already carrying this, like little pouch thing around. So that all those times that I need my wallet, I don't have to go to my phone for. And I bought an alarm clock, just a cheap little alarm clock. And now whenever my last team, if it's just a practice night, all my teams are done by, well, I think 7:45 or so. My phone, I shut it off, it charges in the kitchen, and I use my alarm clock now. And those two things together, if I've got a team that's traveling, then I keep my phone by my nightstand, but not having it by my nightstand about 90% of the time and not needing it for my wallet have been absolute game changers for me to not feel like I have to be interrupted. It's been, I know it sounds like the smallest thing. A guy that I taught a class with, or not taught a class with, but I'm teaching his class at the state conference, but I went to his class at the national conference this year, told me that he, every night, no matter what, when he comes home, he turns his phone off for 30 minutes and just walks the dog or plays with his grandson or whatever the thing is. So I'm practicing that as well, and then turn it back on. And then most nights, if it's not a away game night, I shut it off. It's in the kitchen. It's not on my nightstand anymore. And I have just felt so much more refreshed. And when I turn that phone on in the morning, most days there's nothing I've missed. I haven't missed anything. I don't have any notifications. I have no red numbers on my phone except for phone calls because those are emergencies. Everything else is all shut off. So I'm trying to just have a boundary between because this job is not me, but it can consume you if you allow it. And it's changed. Because I was in that same, like Stephanie was saying, like I had to change my mindset. Like I get to, Shelley, you get to do these things. Last weekend, Thursday, I was in Portland all day for the state wrestling tournament, drove 2 hours home back, I had to be there at 8 a.m. Friday morning, late till 10 o'clock at night, went camping Saturday, spent the night, left at 5 a.m. Sunday and went to a board meeting. And someone was like, oh, that's a lot. I'm like, I get to do that. I get to do those things that people value what I have. I get to do this right now, but but just those little things like less function through my phone has just been the starting point. I just feel so much more refreshed about when I'm at school because I'm also an assistant principal. So I evaluate 12 teachers and 20 classified staff. So when I'm here, I have it helped me round a corner of I am excited to be here today because at some point last night I was able to shut it off. I don't know, it might sound a little trivial, but those are just we don't have 8 to 5 jobs. We just absolutely don't.
Right.
So we've made some agreements in our building around Sundays. Sundays are off limits for open gyms and open workouts unless you play the next day. We are not doing it anymore. And that has helped. I said, coaches, you need to shut it off and I have to shut it off. So, because still we have community that use it. So those are just a few things that have been some little adjustments, and that came from coaches voting, that have helped us all be a little bit more present and like from a get to instead of a have to, and not so burned out. So
I love that you set some boundaries, but yet the operations of your athletic department still remain. I mean, you touched on like all of the things that you're not just checking out and not being there at all.
Yeah, no.
All of your strategies there were like personal preservation in a sustainable, great way. And then also I can just see and tell that the operations of athletics are still happening.
Yes.
You're just setting like realistic boundaries that are
Yep.
going to save your sanity and time and be able to put you in a position to have a reset mindset
Yeah.
if needed. So that's awesome. And I was thinking when you're driving 2 hours from the wrestling back to where you're going, that's an opportunity when I think about it for me to listen to something. So I got to put a
Totally.
podcast on or
Oh, I'm New
something.
Heights podcast.
Yeah.
There's another one. I have, a handful of them. It's when I call my family.
Yeah, I love a call in the
Talk to my
car.
stepmom every week. It's when I call my son or my daughter who's at University of Oklahoma, whatever. And so, yeah, absolutely. I've also had some kind language. I've used a little AI to help with how when coaches text me on a Sunday about like my opinion on plans for 2 years from now, I'll say, would you feel okay if you sent this to me in an email? So they are learning like what's the have to on a weekend. I have to remember that coaches coach in their free time. So I can't be completely unavailable. But it's just some, functional, realistic boundaries. I appreciate you stating it that way, Stephanie.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been better. Yep.
Yeah, so I was gonna say some of the things that I've done is similar to what you were talking about, Shelley, is when I get home, putting my phone in another room so I kind of stay away from it, put on a TV show just to get
Mhm.
myself away from wanting to answer emails or look at emails. And even in the mornings, have a cup of coffee, take my dogs out for a walk before I even try to look at the emails. So I've gotten much better at that. And then I've been listening to different audiobooks. One was Stop Letting Every Little Thing Bother You, because it was one of those things where you just realize that you have coaches coming at you from different directions, needing things and wanting things, and parents and students, and just going with that mindset of, okay, I need to set those boundary lines that instead of always saying yes, being it's okay to say no,
Mhm.
and having those boundaries set so that you don't completely burn yourself out. For our school, which I'm super excited about, we've had a lot of teams go to playoffs. And so it's like our seasons never end. And then we have that crossover period. So
Yeah.
tonight I'm going to drive 2 hours to go to Manteca for our girls basketball. Plus, we have a home track meet in volleyball. And I stop and remind myself that I'm really proud that we have coaches and athletes that are so successful, that are going far into playoffs or having that opportunity to go to playoffs. And yes, it does add more work to the plate, but at the same time, it's actually really nice to see them excel in something, a sport that they're passionate about. And a reminder for me is to get out and exercise and take myself out and go do a workout and then come into work. And so reminding myself to reset and that my health is just as important as well.
Sometimes I'll say to coaches too, or people that are quote venting, like, why do you want me to know that? What can I do to help you? What are you hoping happens so that I don't own everything? Or like you said in that book, I get bothered by every little thing. Like I don't have to own their like doesn't mean it's my fault.
Their emotional weight.
Uh-huh. Yeah. My husband is my head football coach. So we have and he's doing a fantastic job, but we definitely work to try to like I'm like, I love you and I need to talk about this when we get to school. I need to be able to shut it down sometimes. So yeah.
Boy, what a great discussion. Michelle, thanks so much for kicking us off with a great, great topic. Also, too, thanks for talking about the importance of self-care, exercise, rest, stepping away. You guys did a great, great job. We could have done a whole a whole hour on this, but we've got two more topics that we want to discuss. Shelley, you're going to be up next. Shelley Moore, Newport High School. What do you have for our West Coast leadership panel?
Yeah, thank you. I thought I would share what we have done as a school for the last 2 years around sportsmanship. And it sort of started, like I said, 2 years ago, year before last, kind of in line with really the national shortage that we're seeing for officials. And sort of was sort of the Bermuda Triangle of that becoming, very, very clear. We're having to reschedule a lot of sub-varsity games, get sacrificed when there aren't enough officials. Um, or we're moving to days, that are not our normal play dates, which is an impact on my game management, our supervision schedule, and all those things. And along those same lines, our school received 5 ejections that year, 4 in one sport alone. 2 of those in that sport were by the same person, we'll say. and one from a different sport. And in Oregon, when you get to five, at least a couple years ago, when you get to five, you have to go, I lovingly call it sportsmanship boot camp up at our state association. So they put you through kind of a retraining and re-education around expectations. And, it's very solution based, but, and some people required a coach to go with them. And I opted not to do that. I opted to go so I could see it from my own standpoint. I wanted to hear from other athletic directors. Unfortunately, the room was packed when I went. I found it embarrassing. I work as as a president of the OADA. We're an affiliate organization of our state association. So I found it embarrassing that I'm there and my school is, 5 ejections. And I'm always trying to think like from the 1,000-foot lens, like what's the root of what's causing this? What's the bigger problem? Not the low-hanging fruit of this kid is disrespectful or this kid doesn't, like what's the symptom? Like what's the problem? And so you have to do a plan of correction that you present to them, which really can be a 1-page kind of a couple paragraphs or whatever. But I decided to kind of blow it up a little bigger than that, a lot bigger actually. So what we did was at that time, when you got an ejection, kids had to pay a fine by the end of the school year and sit out one contest. Well, in that first year, I decided that kids were going to take the NFHS sportsmanship class as a part of their plan of correction, that the fee would have to be paid before they returned, and that they would need to write any kind of letters of reparation or restorative conversations with whoever it impacted from their ejection. So we started that as a response. And then the next year, I started to think about it. So our coaches, I think, added up the number of hours. It's like 90 hours of training that all of our coaches have to engage in, especially if you're a brand new coach, to get cleared to be a coach in our district. And some of those are state things, and some of those are NFHS things, and some of them are district things, and some of them are my things. And yet our kids are held accountable for actions that we don't educate them about. And so I decided going into last year that I would require teams to take the NFHS sportsmanship class together as teams. So they brought them into the library, like 3 teams at a time, and they would read it. I kind of sandwiched it into my own presentation. And we, so it was sort of bigger than that, but the course was part of it. Then and then I included that in our parent information night, in our coach presentation night, and our kids signed a pledge of respect, really, because sportsmanship comes down to respect, whether you have it or not. So they signed some sportsmanship pledges or respect pledges. And I was like, well, I think we need to go a little bit more formal. So going into this year, so we have about 408 kids at our school that participate in athletics out of 650. And each one of them now is required to take the NFHS sportsmanship class to even get cleared. The hardest part, honestly, is setting up their account on NFHS. I think that alone is part of should be its own count as its own separate training. I do a lot around social media. I make it like, if a kid needed to take a math test, we would teach them math and then we would just report their score. So about every month, maybe 2 months or 6 weeks, I'll go on social media and give an ejection count update. And so far, knock on wood, we're in year 2 of 0 ejections. Every kid has to take the class. It's funny because the more I post about it, my husband, is our head football coach, and he's like, I just am terrified it's going to be me, your husband, that has the team that gets the ejection. It is, we also in Oregon we started it 2 years ago, and then Oregon adopted it also. There's a thing called a pre-event safety timeout that is required. So you meet with officials, the athletic trainer, and coaches, and it's really geared around behavior if somebody gets ejected, and if there's a medical emergency. But I've asked for one of the questions I ask the officials is, how do you expect or allow my coaches or my athletes to talk to you? They need to be able to ask questions. And that my coaches are telling me that really helps them going into a contest to understand it can't be all or nothing. And yet we're going to address the topic that they want to talk about it. And everybody has heard it, because sometimes officials will just shut them down. But by asking the question ahead of time, they have made a plan and they have to stick to that as well. And so I think all those things together have been really easy, made it better. So we're making people aware of it. We're educating our athletes. They don't get to play if they don't take the class. This year is the first year of that. It's free. There's so many free classes on NFHS, but I just don't agree with only reactively making them teach it. Like, it's a privilege to be a good sport. Pressure is a privilege. All those things are privileges, and to do it the right way, we need to give them the opportunity to educate them the right way. Then I add pieces of it into parent night. Then the next year, I think what we'll do is have all freshmen continue to take it, but next year I probably will have like 10th, 11th, and 12th graders take something around concussion or student experience or academic life. There's tons of really good ones on there, and kind of rotate through, and then every other year take sportsmanship again, something like that. So it's volleyball is my sport. It was my sport in college and all the way through. And volleyball has, I wish more sports would adopt the expectations that really in volleyball, the coaches don't get to say anything to officials. And I wish that were the case in other sports, but so that's where we've been. Nobody really wants to be the one. We had one ejection this year that I actually did appeal, and I never appeal it. And the only reason he listened to me was a procedural call in soccer. He went from a yellow to a red card ejection, and the film was helpful, but he told me the only reason that he would listen to me to appeal it was because of the way that our kids and our coaches were respectful and handled themselves after the call happened. And so I like to think that that comes from not just them taking the class, because I know they can click through and, whatever, but just the awareness of it, kind of the package of the comprehensive plan that we submitted to Oregon to improve. And so that's kind of what we've done around sportsmanship.
Shelley, I
Because
like your proactive approach. The proactive approach is super key, because I found myself admiring the problem of lack of sportsmanship and sportsmanship centered issues in the last few years. And I think your proactive approach by having a solid training plan for all of your athletes, because as we know, kids for the most part, they want to learn, they want to do better, they need examples. So if those are good trainings, that's awesome that they're hearing things so that they probably will think twice. Obviously, things are going to come up that inspire spirited responses to certain situations. But I really appreciate the proactive approach to teaching your kids and coaches, even if it's just a recenter on what's important with around those topics. So we've seen an uptick, and I've always tried to think, oh, that's, kind of what society is like right now. That's, there's social issues that are contributing to this. We have not funny, but just a unique example here in Spokane where we have Gonzaga University with the great student section, but it's not necessarily a great example. It's not a terrible example. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome in 90% of the situations, but they say things that you hear on TV that you see in person, and then our kids emulate that in a big setting sometime. This is the first time I've seen this season. One of our varsity basketball coaches was asked by the refs to stop the game and go over to the crowd and talk to them. Usually you see that if there's a thrown water bottle, not just because they're shouting out lame things in a rivalry game. But I think that proactive approach and great examples of how you can be super into it, but also be appropriate and have high level of sportsmanship. Another example here in Washington is we have a storied college football program on the other side of the state. And their coach in those days would say, we're going to beat them on the field, but we're going to shake their hands during and afterwards. We're going to help them up during the game. We're probably going to beat them by a lot, but we're going to help them up, and we're going to shake their hands after. And it's just that kind of philosophy, I think, sometimes gets lost in the heat of the moment. So your proactive approach is noted.
We've tried to humanize officials as well by having them come to our parent athlete information nights and talk about themselves. So I don't think kids don't understand, like, people choose to officiate in their free time.
Thank goodness someone does.
No kidding. We can't play a game without them. And so by humanizing it a little bit and having them come to, whether it's my coach symposium or, information night, or even just posting clips, really appreciating them during those official appreciation weeks. We've also, part of it is I've stopped having adults read the sportsmanship statement, and I have kids read it as much as possible at our
Yeah,
event.
awesome.
And by having that, when we do a youth, we call it growing up Cub night, for every sport, because we're the Cubs. And so we'll have those youth nights where I'll have maybe a fifth grader read it. But when it's a voice of a child or a student athlete, somebody who's younger that comes over, it really gives pause to the crowd to listen. I kind of call it my sportsmanship ambassador. I have a girl who injured her knee really badly, and she has really taken it upon herself to be the one who does that. And it's just part of it. Like when you put the words in the people's mouth that need to learn it, it's a little bit more proactive, I
We've
think.
done a variety of things. I'm on the sportsmanship committee for our section, amazingly enough. And one of the things that came out of that was we have A-frames that we've encouraged all the schools to get. So it'll have little sayings like, let the coaches coach, let the officials officiate. And I agree with you, having students talk about sportsmanship has been huge. Like the crowd really listens to them. And then one of the things that I've done is, and this is kind of a cool little tip, is my boys soccer coach. I love these guys. And I have very high expectations of sportsmanship, and they know that. And so after one of the games, I wasn't too pleased with how their behavior was. And I wanted to get ahead of it as the season progresses because they had opportunities to go to playoffs. So I took them into the snack shack, gave them an index card, and I had them write a line down the middle. And on the left side, it's what are your controllables? And then on the right side, what are your uncontrollables? And I had them write down three things. And then each person spoke up about what's an uncontrollable, like the officials, the crowd, and what's a controllable, which is their behavior. And I had them tally. So every time somebody said something the same thing as you, so every time they said official, put a tally mark. And it was kind of cool because then we had a conversation about the things they can control and the things that they cannot. And together as a team, they got to pick each other up and realize, okay, if this person's on the verge of getting a red card, you got to help him out and have him walk away. So it was kind of a cool conversation that I got to have with the team. And sometimes as an AD, we don't always get to have those conversations. Like we'll do our sportsmanship nights where we do our presentation to the parents and say, hey, please don't make me work. Just behave in the stands and, don't make me kick you out. And if so, here are the consequences. But just having those proactive conversations that I think sometimes we forget that kids don't necessarily know what sportsmanship is supposed to look like. So we have these assumptions that show good sportsmanship. Okay, what does that look like? And how is that explained to a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, what that looks like? And I think that's something that we miss out on is those opportunities to reevaluate and explain this is what it should look like.
We did a sportsmanship video a couple of years ago with our students. They were the full focus of the video, and we have a tremendous communications department full of people who used to be news people. So they produce great videos. And one of the kids in the video, and it's played at our stadium and it's played at all of our schools, a girl right in the middle, I think she was a softball player, said, parents, please don't embarrass us. Because that's another thing that probably is even more of an issue than the kids right now is the way the parents are behaving. So I think approaching sportsmanship from the different angles and talking about that was really impactful. You hear the crowd actually go a little bit quiet when she says that because it's so powerful. And it just is that reset that some of our adults need as well. So feels like sportsmanship's an ongoing challenge. I know I'm guilty of saying a boo every now and then at those Gonzaga games. And at the same time, just modeling that great character seems to be a theme. And sounds like you guys are doing awesome things with that.
One of the things I realized was that one of my coaches, who had 4 of the ejections on his program, thought it was funny. Like he would joke about it a lot. And I was like, there it is. There it is. It's like, oh, it's boys soccer. It's supposed to be, like that. So it was like, okay, that's a starting point where it's not acceptable. And I tell parents and kids at information night, poor officiating happens. It is one of the opponents. It is part of the game. And how often has an official gone up in the stands and got the opinion of Joey's mom and changed the call because she's upset? It doesn't happen. And you just have to know that going into the game, that that's going to be part of it. And the more it continued to happen, they came into contests like with a target on their back, that like you're losing goals or you're losing points or you're losing kills or whatever, because you have the history and reputation of acting this way. And before you even step on the court, the more often that it continues to happen. And it's
One of the things that I've advised my parents and my coaches when they're upset about the officials is I'll tell them, hey, gather video of what it was that you were upset about, a missed call, and I will send that into the officials association. Because, yeah, it's not going to change that call right then and there, but we're giving them educational tools of, hey, this is a call that was missed, which then led to, the crowd being upset or a student athlete getting injured. And so I try to explain to them, give us the tools to help our officials get better. And by sending in these videos, that it gives them that opportunity to educate and say, okay, next time don't do this. Or even sometimes reminding the officials themselves not to escalate the situation with parents, because then it makes it that much harder for us as ADs to tell our parents, please don't antagonize the officials. But if the officials are escalating, that again, it's reciprocal. People will feed off of each other's emotions.
I'm going to have to jump in here. You guys have done a great job. Again, Shelley, thanks for giving us a topic, sportsmanship. We can't talk about it enough. I'm going to approach this from a couple different angles. One is an AD whose schools were fortunate enough. We in Florida, we won the state association sportsmanship trophy. We won it at 2 different schools. So obviously our kids, our coaches, our fans were doing something right. I'm not giving myself the credit. I'm saying our kids, our coaches, and our schools were doing something right. I'm also going to approach it as an official. I still referee high school basketball games. I do high school and college track meets. And 2 things that I think we did a good job of at our schools. One, you already mentioned it, the sportsmanship announcement before the game, having the students do it. We would invite a student from the other team. I'd ask the coach ahead of time, volleyball, football, soccer. We did it for all of our sports. It was a great, it had a great impact, I think, on our fans to hear the kids talking about, hey, we want you to be a good sport. I love that, Stephanie. Don't embarrass us. Rather than the cranky old athletic director saying, hey, you better be a good sport. So I encourage you to do that. I can even send you some great video of one of our teams down in Miami that did it. The other thing, at my last school where I ended up retiring from, it was a great school. Great coaches, great kids, great programs. We knew most of our programs are going to be Final Four teams. That's how fortunate we were. We really didn't have an issue with sportsmanship with our coaches, with our kids or our parents, but I wanted us to be the best. And so I met with our coaches and I said, I would like to propose this change to our handbook. In Florida, it's a little different than Oregon. If you are ejected as a player or a coach, you are sitting out a minimum of 3 games, the next 3 games. You're doing the NFHS sportsmanship manual. The school's getting fined. I mean, it's serious. We take it seriously. I know not all states are the same way. What I ask our coaches, I said, this is how important we think sportsmanship is. I want our athletic department to say, if you get ejected, whatever the state penalty is, and usually it's an automatic 3, it would get cut down to 2, but very seldom 1 or none. Whatever the state ends up handing down, our school, we're going to double that. That's how important sportsmanship is to us. And the coaches were all in favor of it. They knew it wasn't going to be a problem because our coaches did a good job with it. They explained it to the kids. I explained it to the kids and the parents. And in the 3 years that we had that policy, and then I retired, I still think they have that policy. We only had to use it once on a student athlete. And it was the sweetest little girl you could ever imagine. You know, somebody yanked her hair in a basketball game. She turned around and threw a punch. And she was in my office the next day. And guess what? She owned it. She was in tears. She knew how important that was. In Florida, if you win the sportsmanship award, your school gets $3,000 that you can give to the kids or coaches, whoever. And she knew about that. She said, I'm so sorry. I caused this $3,000. because she owned it, the state only gave her 2 games, and we said, guess what? We're going to stick with 2. You owned it. You don't have a history of this, no recidivism or anything like that. But I think those 2 things, the student athlete message and making sure that your coaches are on board with good sportsmanship, because let's face it, the kids and the fans, they're going to follow the lead of the coach. Okay. Whatever that coach does, they're going to follow. If your coach doesn't go ballistic when there's a bad call, and there's going to be bad calls, I know it as an official, everybody moves on. So any final thoughts on this very important topic? Shelley, real quickly, I'll start with you.
No, I guess I'm challenging my brain to what's the next thing that we add to it, and trying to prepare myself when we slip and we do have our first ejection, because we haven't had one, and we're going on 2 years. How do we respond that's fair and doesn't derail the entire thing, and then keep moving forward? So that I don't necessarily have that answer quite yet. But I think I'm just trying to challenge myself on what's next. How do we keep it moving? How does it not become white noise? And really, I don't know that sometimes kids know why the way they speak to each other is far different, and they are alarmed when we respond as if it's disrespectful or, and worthy of correction. So it's just how do I continue to shift the mindset so that it's fresh?
No, absolutely. Stephanie?
I'm glad to hear that football coach isn't getting ejected, because
Well,
that'd be awkward.
Yeah, we'll see.
I would just say I love, again, the proactive approach. And so I think that we can do better here in our community. We have 17 schools in our league, spanning really the metro area in general, and then a couple schools that are a few hours away that tack on. But I think being proactive about situations is smart too, that, these rivalries need to have an extra set of care when it comes to who's playing who. With the way that transfers are going in Washington and in our city right now, awareness that some kids were on a team and then they're on the opposite team the next year. And what does that look like? We've unfortunately had some coaches make terrible decisions, and then their kids, though, are still playing. They're not coaching because they, went through that process, but then the kids are still playing. We've got people that are aware of that. So just being proactive about what the vibe is of the events is something that I think we can get better at too. But super utmost importance, even more so than probably being competitive, is the way we're treating each other. So lots of good takeaways from today.
Michelle, bring us home on this topic, and then we'll jump to Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you. No, I would say definitely continuing the proactive approach, having the sportsmanship nights, explaining to people what the consequences are if they happen to get ejected. And I think a lot of it is communication and reinforcement, and just putting yourselves out there as ADs, being proactive, being at the contests, circulating the room. Don't just stand in a doorway, but actually go to where, situations might occur. Be around the benches to kind of help with our student athletes, explain. Sometimes they might say something and you're like, it's not appropriate. So again, just that proactive, constant consistency, I think, is key to helping with the sportsmanship issues that we've seen in the past and in the present.
Again, I just want to thank Shelley for bringing that topic up. Great discussion, great ideas. Keep being the leaders on that. We're kind of the gatekeepers as ADs for sportsmanship. I love to say everything we see at a school, it's either coached or it's allowed. Which one is it for you? Make sure you're coaching good sportsmanship. Stephanie, Spokane Public Schools, bring us home. What are you guys gonna talk about?
Yeah, it's great. This is super timely because we are transitioning from the winter to the spring, and notable in our school district, we have 5 comprehensive high schools in Spokane. None of our teams made it to the state tournament in basketball this year. We've consistently had 2 or 3. And so there's usually that overlap with spring, as Michelle mentioned earlier, that she's working through with hers. And so this year, it just really emphasizes to me What are the things that we're doing well to rebuild our programs? We have pockets of success in Spokane. We're a world-renowned distance running community, that's for sure. And so that continues to thrive. We've had state champions in football. We've had many Division I athletes. And for some reason, in the last few years, we've had a downtick in our competitive structure and just consistency. So we're looking to rebuild our athletics programs and couldn't do it without this moment in time where I've got a superintendent who absolutely cares about athletics. He's a coach himself. He coaches a lot of youth basketball and has really made it a focus. We have a district-wide initiative supported by our school board to engage IRL, so engage in real life. And along with that comes just great opportunities to expand athletics. We know in some sports like track and tennis and even football and soccer, the more kids you've got out, the better your teams are going to be on the top end. And so we've done a lot of things to focus on becoming higher quality programs and more competitive programs. That starts with hiring great people. So I've talked about that on previous episodes, that we've done a complete retooling of how we hire. So starting with, I'd say 6 years ago, because now it's 2026, right? So 6 years ago, we decided to hire athletic directors or have athletic director applicants that are not just admin certs at schools be the only people that we're interviewing. So we reached out to both classified and certificated people, and we have great sports management college programs around this area. We have a lot of people with a lot of sports organization background, so we opened it up to them as well, and that has just broadened our pool of great athletic leaders. 4 of our 5 athletic directors right now are not school admins. They are now, because they're athletic directors in our schools, but they came from either the local universities, or they came from minor league sports, or in one case a non-local university, but also a university setting. And we've had a lot of success with that. So changing our, the way that we do things with who we hire to be these leaders. My department has tripled in size centrally. So that's another strategy that we've developed that really just shows the commitment to high quality programs. And then we really at this point are not putting up with coaches who don't do a great job. If you're not doing a great job, we'll go through the process, of course, that contracts and other formal pieces, but there's a high expectation that you're treating people well, that you're winning, but not at all costs, obviously. We all know that. And also that you're being open communicators with your families. That's the number one reason why a coach might not be successful here. They're not communicating with anybody, and that's not okay. So that's something that we're looking to change, but also looking for hiring coaches who understand what a solid communication plan is with their parents. These parents right now, they want to know everything. They want to know absolutely everything. So, simple, silly strategy is if a coach is struggling or if they're young and new, I say, do a weekly newsletter. I don't care what it looks like. It doesn't have to be Canva. It doesn't have to be high formatted HTML, but your families really appreciate if you just let them know what is going on. Never forget a couple falls ago when we were having a situation with a coach, and her parents commented that they didn't know she was taking them out of town the upcoming weekend. And I thought that's the easiest newsletter item, is to say that you're going across the state to play in a tournament. And so just that high expectation for communication. And then the last thing I would say that is a current focus, and it might be something that's more of a fabric of other places, but it has lost and fallen off here, is we need to have better weight rooms. We need to have better instruction in the weight room. We need to have a more consistent approach to the different sports and their needs. We want our distance runners in those weight rooms. We want the basketball players and the football players, not just the football players and track kids. We need all kids in and out of the weight room doing high quality programming. So we're looking at certifying 2 people at each school with the national certification for weightlifting and conditioning. And that's part of that investment for some consistency. I think we've had some retirements is really what that points to. We've got some veterans that have since retired that were our great weight room champions, but we know kids want to be healthier and stronger because they'll be more successful and it feels better. We do a lot of student voice surveys, and students say they want to be in the weight room, but they need someone to give them quality programming that helps them get better. So that's something as well. I guess I'd say the last thing, and that was going to be the last thing, but one of the things is we folded facilities management into our central athletics department, because who's using the facilities? Athletics. And so it just makes sense that after 40 years of doing it one way, with our facilities management being a separate department, they're now part of the athletic department, because 95% of our reservations are for athletics. And this way we make sure that our kids have what they need, our community has what they need. We have a pretty high level of recreation opportunities here, and just making sure that our facilities are top tier. We threw in 2 new gym floors in the last year that we didn't really plan on, but it also hadn't been looked at for a long time. And so there was a sense of, I'd say, degrading of pride, because the floors look terrible at these really cool schools that we have. So just investing in various things. We're super committed to being successful, but we also want students to have what they need. So we're in the process of rebuilding our athletics philosophy and programs. We've had big pockets of success recently to build on. And at the same time, we've got a little ways to go with really shaping just a high quality driven program that all kids want to be a part of. So that's one of the focus areas I have. Recently, just a celebration is that we did pass a bond in these times of not passing bonds. We passed a pretty big bond that's a joint initiative with our parks department that will put all weather fields for softball, baseball, and football at all 5 of our schools. And that's huge, especially here in Spokane, which who knows what the weather is ever doing. Last year we had 108 September 10th degrees. And then, it could be an ice storm next week. So we just never know, but we know that to get people out there and to contribute to the high quality programming we want to do, we need facilities that support our climate and that support what kids do want to do. So that's really exciting. I can't get enough of turf vendors. I'm all about turf vendors. And at the same time, it's just not something we've ever had. So this investment in our athletics community-wide has been super awesome. Along with that comes other facilities upgrades, but lit and turfed fields is a massive upgrade for us in Spokane, and just speaks to that commitment. But now the hard work is we have to actually get stuff done to make sure that all of our kids have what they need.
Great stuff. Let's see. Michelle, let's go and start with you.
Yeah, no, with the coaches and educating them, a lot of stuff is valuable, especially the way they communicate with the parents and letting the parents know what's going on. One of the things that I was doing with my coaches, because I have new coaches and veteran coaches, we use Parent Square as our communications platform, and that's required by our district. And I've made suggestions to the coaches of, hey, when you send something out, send out some positives of things that have happened. Thank the parents that helped you with the volunteering with the scoreboard, or something, a spectacular thing that a student athlete did during a contest, and then reminders of what's happening for the upcoming things for the week. And it's been helpful because with that transparent communication, going back to our coaches and hiring coaches, the more transparent communication the coaches have with the parents and the athletes of what's going on, the less room there is for complaints and concerns, because they have an idea of what the goals are for the coach. And when we have our sportsmanship nights, we also expect our coaches to do a team meeting so they can cover, if you have a concern, what are the processes as well. And again, it just helps getting everybody on that same page.
Shelley?
One thing I implemented around just the coach communication piece 5 years ago when I was transferred here to this school is I do a coach bulletin every, I don't know, few weeks or so. And it's a Google Doc. And in that, it's been really helpful because I have a spreadsheet that we have a very influential booster club, for example. So they have a teen booster account and they have a high school account. So they can always see the link to that spreadsheet. They can see a link to all the important dates for the year for athletics. I put a coach tip in there, like an educational component, and I highlight the dates that are coming up. So they feel less surprised because 70% of my coaches are not on campus.
Hmm.
They're community coaches. And so I was a community coach as well when I coached here about 20 years ago. And so I kind of try to come from that mindset. And it also is a point of reference they can go back to. I've also started linking our calendars for our different facilities. Instead of that has also helped me with that boundary line, that personal boundary line. They can look and see, oh, the gym is instead of texting me on a Sunday, in an hour, can I have an open gym? Ah! So they can look and see. So it's help. I'm trying to like help them solve their own problems or answer their own questions, and having a bulletin has been really helpful that way as far as communication goes.
Is there a mechanism in that bulletin, because that's such a great idea, for them to respond to you or to have something to say, or is it
They,
just more informational?
yeah, they could. Some of them, it depends on how googly they are. Some of them
Uh-huh.
are not very technological at all. And they have commenting that they can comment about. And it's great because sometimes there'll be an error on something. I have a couple coaches that are, I don't want to say noisy, but pay attention. And they'll hold me accountable. And what you said that you were going to move $100 into my account for whatever. And yep, I forgot to, or have you seen the deposit for whatever, or I thought my picture, they'll ask those questions so they can use the commenting function. Not all of them do. Sometimes I'll incentivize it so that they read it. So I'll
Oh,
put
yeah.
something buried at the very bottom of the bulletin that's a link to somewhere else, and I'll ask them a question, and the first, coach of a girls team or coach of a boys team will get $50 in their account if they tell me whatever it is. But it forces them to have to read every single part of the bulletin.
I
And
love
I
an
enjoy, like, I love like Google stuff because you can see, you can see who's linked in there, like you can see their names pop up. Yeah, it's the only way I could really come up with putting it all in one, kind of a one-stop shop, because I'm trying to help them, respond to their own questions a little bit more and
Okay.
hold me accountable where it needs to
Communication.
be as well. Yeah.
Communication just from the lens that you're sharing too, not just from the coaches to the students and
Mhm.
parents, but centrally too, or overseeing the athletic department. We're just in an era where it's constantly evolving and changing, and we need to keep up to speed. We need to give people what they need. And if what they need is a bulletin or a newsletter or a weekly update or a common platform, like Michelle said, that's great. We're a little all over the place with platforms, but having one it makes sense, and I think people really get used to it, that's the way that they communicate. And I just see that there's some expectations with coaches if they haven't been around for a while, if they're new,
Mhm.
and like you said, Shelley, if they're not connected to the school, they come from all sorts of communication strategy backgrounds,
Oh,
either
yeah. Well, I've got
zero
a
to
coach with a flip
100.
phone. I have a coach who uses a flip phone still. So
Sure.
here's him.
Sure. And they have funny assumptions, I think, that they make that they've experienced. But when you come into a high school athletic setting, there's a lot of things that need to be considered differently. So
Yeah.
communication is super key. And we say that, but we actually have to put it into practice.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I've done is I have a monthly newsletter. It's like a email that I send out to my coaches, and it'll be like what our goal is for the year. And then it'll be some professional development links for them to go to. And then I'll reiterate some of the processes we have about pre approval before spending money and the athletic reimbursement form. And here's some quick tips, take a look at your season. When are you going to have a teacher appreciation night or an officials appreciation night? And so I try to make it more informational of professional coaching development as opposed to department updates, but some of it is department updates of
Sure.
processes, just because it's always changing. Public schools, we like to do that, keep ourselves busy.
It's a cool combo to have it both be PD and informative. That's great. I'm sure you
Yeah.
get a lot of engagement that way.
The funny part is, like I said, I go to conferences all the time, which is it's cool. So you pick up a nugget every now and then. And I remember the AD who did a presentation, and she said that she sends stuff out to her coaches, and it was kind of refreshing to hear. She's like, I don't know if they open it or not. She's like, but the ones that do and the ones that click and are interested in reading the information, it's like throwing a pebble into into the lake, and you're hoping that you're going to have a little bit of that ripple effect. And that really resonated with me, because to me, I'm going to have new coaches or veteran coaches, and the ones that actually take the time and open those links and looks at that email, I'm hoping they'll be that much more informed and better coaches for it. So I feel like I'm just throwing my little pebbles out and just hoping the ripple effects will
That's
occur.
awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Another way to make sure your coaches are reading those bulletins, and again, I was at a private school, so I had a little more flexibility maybe than you have. I sent it out every Sunday night. It was set to go out, so they'd be in their inbox Monday morning. We also sent it to the teachers. We wanted the teachers to know what was going on. And it wasn't, volume 17. It was just a one sheet that had events for the day or things that we wanted to talk about. But I also started, I got our local vendors in our town in Tallahassee to sponsor a monthly coaches lunch, and I put that in the bottom of the announcement the first time we did that, and we only had about I would say 50% of the coaches who could have been there show up, because the other 50, guess what? They didn't read the bulletin. Okay, and so you find ways to, I guess, encourage them. The information's important, but we're going to make it even more important for them to read. We had 100% attendance at the next month's coach's lunch. So I guess they read the bulletin.
That's awesome.
Well, again, ladies, I know it's incredibly busy time for you, springtime, the busiest season for athletic directors. But I appreciate you spending time with our listeners today with some great information. Michelle, you talked about nuggets. I think we had a wheelbarrow full of nuggets today with everything y'all provided. Very quickly, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more, or just add you to their network. And listeners, there's a reason I invited these three athletic directors to be on our West Coast Leadership podcast, because they are great resources. We'll go in reverse order this time. Stephanie, if our listeners want to reach out, how can they get in touch with Stephanie Splater?
Absolutely. Probably the best way is LinkedIn right now. And then, of course, via our SpokaneSchools.org website, if you're into reaching out email style. But LinkedIn is right now where we're at in Spokane, with lots of connections and showcasing great things.
Okay. Shelley, how about you? How do they get in touch with Shelley Moore from Newport High School?
I would just say use my email address, which is available on our Lincoln County School District website for Lincoln County in Oregon, or Newport High School in Oregon, and you can find my email address there. Okay.
And Michelle, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
I would say just email me, Michelle with two L's, MICHELLE.Noeth, NOETH @mvla.net.
Okay. We'll also put the information in the show notes, and all three of our guests, you can find their information on the NIAAA membership portal. So, athletic directors, thanks again for coming on. All the best as we move forward into spring sports. And this isn't a one-time shot, listeners. We're going to be doing this again. We're going to try to find a date down the road where all three of our guests can share some more great information. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
For our listeners, we want to thank you for tuning in. Just remind you, the website for athletic director, the Educational AD podcast, I'll get it out, is on YouTube, and we post all of our episodes there. We try to share best practices and stories from the world of athletics just about every day. So please come back and join us again on the next episode of West Coast Leadership and the next episode of the Educational AD podcast. We'll see you next time. Wow, great episode. Our guests were great. I just managed to hopefully stay out of the way. Want to make sure we thank our sponsors one more time. Go and visit these sponsors. If you're not using them, you really should check them out. Give them a chance to show you all the great things they can do for your program. Let's say thanks to Athletic Surveys, athleticsurveys.com, Booster Hub, the #1 Booster Club software program, Home Campus. It's a platform you're going to use every day. Go to homecampus.com. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Check them out. Gipper, go to gipper.com. Hometown, you'll find them at hometown.com. Huddle, guess what? Huddle.com. And Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Check them out. Pass that information on to anyone you know looking to complete their master's program. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.